All right, what's up, everybody? This is Brent. You're listening to the LJS podcast. Welcome to the show. Today is episode number 20. That's right, we've made it all the way to episode number 20, and I want to thank everybody for listening to the show so far. We've been having a great time. We've been loving the show. We got a lot of good feedback from the show, so we're going to keep on going, and I just want to thank everybody for listening so far. And for episode 20, I have a very special guest coming on the show today. My good friend, bassist, multi-instrumentalist, multi-genre instrumentalist, Nathaniel Schroeder is joining me on the show today. And we're going to be talking about how studying jazz can help you be a better musician in general. How it can help you play other styles of music, and also vice versa, how playing other styles of music can help your jazz playing. So we're going to dive in and talk about that. I just want to say, though, that all of the music on today's show is by our guest, Nathaniel Schroeder. Nathaniel actually writes the music for a couple really popular YouTube channels, Minute Physics and Minute Earth. And if you want to check out the music he does for that YouTube channel show, you can go to soundcloud.com/Dr. Schroeder. That's DRSCHROEDER. soundcloud.com/Dr. Schroeder. If you're listening to this on the website, that will also be in the show notes. And one more thing before we start our conversation today. If you get value out of this podcast, consider adding value back. This podcast, it's 100% funded, produced by listeners like you. So if you like what you're hearing, if you're getting something out of it, then you can go ahead and click the support button if you're on the website. Leave us a one-time, monthly, or annual donation. Or if you're not on the website, you can go to learnjazzstandards.com/support and help us out there. And I want to especially thank on this, this special 20th episode for everybody who's actually supported this podcast so far. We could not be doing this without you. So thank you. Thanks so much. We really appreciate it. And okay, I'm going to just introduce our guest today before we jump on in. Nathaniel, like I said, he's a multi-instrumentalist. He's primarily an upright and electric bass player, but he plays a slew of different instruments: guitar, trombone, drums. I mean, he really does the whole package. And, he composes music for YouTube. He plays pop, rock, gospel gigs, jazz gigs. But he is a formerly trained jazz musician as well. So he's really just a great resource to kind of talk about this subject today of how jazz can help you become a better musician in general. And so he has a lot to say about that. And one little disclaimer before I start the interview: in New York City right now, it's been like 95 degrees Fahrenheit and humidity like you wouldn't believe. So while we were recording this interview, I accidentally left on my window air conditioner. So when I was listening back to the interview, I heard this gentle hum in the background. I was like, oh no. So, rookie mistake, rookie move. So apologize for that, but hopefully you can overlook that small detail. Okay, so without further ado, let's just jump on in and get on Nathaniel Schroeder. All right, special guest on the show today is Nathaniel Schroeder, my good friend Nathaniel Schroeder. Thanks for being on the show, man.
Of course, man. I'm glad to be here.
So you are primarily an electric bassist and an upright bassist, but you're really a multi-instrumentalist, wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, I definitely play and dabble in all the instruments. I started on electric bass. No, technically I started on piano.
Yeah?
But I never took lessons, no.
So your mom and dad made you play piano when you were a kid?
Yeah. Well, no,
but everybody else.
Yeah, right? My mom had a little Casio piano that I just carried around the house with me, and I'll bring it in the bathroom with me and play in the bathroom. I don't know if I should be releasing that information. Regardless.
I can edit that.
Yeah, no, you can keep that in there. I don't mind. But, and then, I got an electric bass. I mean, I played, horn. I played baritone all throughout, grade school.
So, in band and, high school?
Yeah, in band, definitely in band. And then in about 7th grade, I got an electric bass, started playing that. And then when I was 20, I got myself an acoustic bass and started playing the acoustic bass. So, and actually right when I turned 20, I transferred into a music program and started studying jazz on acoustic bass. So
okay.
Yeah, so it's been about 6 years since I've been playing.
So when you started the electric bass, were you playing? What kind of music was your like focus? Like, what were you really into playing?
I guess my first, because it was electric bass, so it's like rock and roll. I was really into Blink-182. I was really into what's that band? Red Hot Chili Peppers. I learned all of Flea's lines. Really proud of that. But honestly, the band that I was into most and literally obsessed over for like 6 years was the band Fish.
Fish, yeah, that's right. You love Fish.
Everybody knows about Fish. But actually, part of the reason why I like Fish is because you could tell the band leader, Trent Anastasio, just loved music. Like, he just had an affinity for music and listened to a lot of different styles. And on a lot of their older records, like from the 90s, they'd play jazz songs. I'm serious. Like, if you look at Picture of Nectar, which is like I think their second studio album, they literally have a rhythm changes on it. And I remember I had a bass teacher when I was in 8th grade, and I brought that rhythm changes in. I'm like, this is the coolest song I've ever heard.
Right.
And then I asked the guy, I was like, what is it? He's like, oh, it's a rhythm changes. So that was actually kind of like my first intro to jazz.
Whoa.
I swear.
So Fish got you into jazz.
A little, yeah. And you can even, they do a lot more stuff. Like a lot of their albums from like between like 88 to like 95. Every once in a while, they would put on a jazz. They'd play Donna Lee. They had a horn section with them, and they would do like really cool, like kind of fusion, not fusion, but like jam bandy jazz songs. But like they would try and swing. The keyword try.
Yeah. so yeah, right. So he was attempting, right?
Well, Trey's the guitar player. He actually studied jazz. Like, he's got a lot of bebop vocabulary. Like, you can hear it in his phrasing and just like he knows how to play.
Ooh, I'm interested to talk a little more about that later, especially because obviously our topic today is, we're talking about how studying jazz can help you play other genres of music better, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So that would be an interesting one to come back to Fish.
I would definitely come back to
and talk about that. So at what point was it that you decided you wanted to become a professional musician in general? Was it when you started the bass, or when was it that you decided that?
Can I tell a quick story?
Yeah, tell a story.
Yeah, so like basically when I was 16, I went to the Berkeley 5-week. And it was like, do you know the 5-week program?
No. It's like Berkeley College of Music.
Yeah, Berkeley College of Music. They have a 5-week program. And that's really where I kind of realized I liked music. Like music. I always was interested in... I was always interested in it. But I finally went to a program where I just saw like other kids my age playing. And it was really inspiring.
Yeah.
And I also felt like I was really behind the 8 ball because I saw a lot of really, really talented kids. Yeah, kids who've been playing since they were like 8, and I had only... And like really studying. Like, what's his name? Chad Lefkowitz Brown. I met him there, and he sounded like he was like 50 when he was playing when he was 16. So it's just like, it was really inspiring, but also at the same time really intimidating. So when it came time for me to apply to schools, I didn't know if I'd like be good enough. So I went and studied physics for 2 years in Iowa.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Right.
And while I was out in Iowa, I kept playing music, and I was playing more and more music out there. And eventually some guy was like, listen, you clearly love playing music. You should actually go pursue it. And that's when I formally decided to study. So
you were actually studying something non-music related completely. Yeah. You were going to college for something non-music related.
I was double majoring, but I was playing physics, but and also like
but that was the turning point for you. That's when you were like, okay, I need to be a musician.
Yeah, because it was just like the writing was on the wall. Like, I was out in Iowa studying physics, and I was listening to more music than I ever was. I was playing gigs in Iowa. I was hanging out with only musicians out there. I didn't really... I connected with other people, but like the people that I've really felt the closest bond with was people that I played music with.
Okay.
And actually, I started listening to gospel music while I was out there too. I never would have thought that would have happened. I met a really, really, really great guy who introduced me to gospel drumming. But even then, when I was out there, I was listening to more jazz than I was listening to. I was listening to like Oscar Peterson. I was listening to all this stuff.
Yeah.
So
I know you as like, you're a phenomenal jazz bass player, but you're really, to me, you play lots of different genres.
Yeah.
You also compose music for a YouTube channel. You're a multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah.
How do you, so you really embody a lot of different musical styles and ambitions. How do you make a living right now as a musician in general?
Kind of what you were just hinting at. I'm doing a lot. I teach a little bit right now. I work with a program up in the Bronx, so I'm teaching. Well, right now I'm only teaching 3 things a week, three separate classes, So that's tiny. And I work a lot of gigs. Recently, I've been playing a lot of church gigs, like in the gospel scene.
Yeah.
I'm playing jazz gigs still. I work with a couple different groups, so that keeps me busy. And finally, what you were saying is I do the music for the YouTube channel, 2 YouTube channels now. You could see them. You might have seen them. They're Minute Earth and Minute Physics.
Yeah.
Actually, the guy who started those channels is a Grinnellian. The first school I went to where I was studying physics. He was a physics major.
That's where you guys met.
He's a fantastic musician too. So that's really a majority of where my income comes from. I mean, since I do the music for the YouTube channel, every once in a while I'll get a gig recording for someone. Like they'll just pay me like the money to record a demo for them or something.
Yeah.
But for the most part,
You're a career musician, man. So like,
yeah, I try and do everything.
and we'll have in the show notes, we'll have a link to some of those Minute Earth, Minute Physics videos. You can hear a little bit of some of Nathaniel's music for that YouTube channel. But so with all of this in mind, what made you decide specifically to study jazz in college?
It's weird because, like I said, I was like a rock and roll guy. I just like music. I like Fish, but I also there's something that was just very appealing about jazz. Even when Fish was playing jazz, I was like, this is cool. Just like I can't. I'm trying to think of what exactly about jazz I was drawn to. Maybe it was just the phrasing of just like the freedomness to, or the freedom to it, like the improvisation. But it kind of sparked my interest, so I just started listening more and more to jazz. Like I told you, I was listening to a lot of Oscar Peterson Trio. I was listening to Coltrane. I was listening to like the early Miles Davis quintet stuff, like the early, like with his first quintet, those 4 albums he put out, like Relax and Steamin'.
The Prestige.
Yeah, I forget what the name is.
The Prestige, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I was listening to a lot of that, and I knew if I actually wanted to study music, it was going to either be studying jazz or studying classical, and I just my personality, I didn't really see myself fitting in the classical world. And I like the colloquialism of jazz. I like the fact that you can just learn from like records. I liked that all it took was just listening, because I love listening to music. So it's just like, if you want to learn something, you just listen to it over and over again. I mean, I guess it's the same for classical music, but that just seems so much more structured. And it's like, oh, you want to learn a Bach prelude, or you want to learn this, there's the sheet music, have fun. Like, yeah. Like I like the fact that if I wanted to learn a bass solo or like a walking line, I could just sit down and learn it note for note.
Right.
And then so yeah, I mean, when I took a year off for like in between my 2 schools, and that's really when I started studying jazz. Like I said, that's when I got the acoustic bass. I was playing a lot like jazz tunes, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna actually dive in. Because before, like, I was still floundering, I was still doing a bunch of different styles, but this was like the first time I was like, yo, I want to learn this language. I want to learn everything about this, like, because it's like, I just knew with it, like, having a really strong foundation in the jazz language, it would just translate into other styles. Like, I still use it, like, just it's a system. For me, it was a systematic way of looking at music.
Okay, let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
So when you're playing and composing different styles of music and in these different situations, what are some ways that come to mind that your jazz studies, your formal jazz studies, have benefited you? I mean, as a musician.
Yeah, the language, the vocabulary, it comes out all over the place. Like just knowing how to work 2-5-1s, knowing different progressions.
Right, like I think that jazz helps you understand a lot about harmonic structures.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, because there's such a rich harmony in jazz.
Yeah.
You know, that sometimes, I mean, it depends on what music it is, but sometimes other music don't have quite of a rich harmonic structure, so you don't necessarily get the opportunity to study some of those things. Where in jazz, it allows you to do that.
Yeah, like if you listen to Blink-182, like harmonically they're not doing much. Like,
right.
Like you can't really. I mean, you can study what they're doing, but a lot of what that's just catchy. Like there's something infectious about that. With jazz, like there's multiple layers. There's so many different things you can evaluate. You can look at like how there's just like their ride pattern, like how the drummer and the bass player hook up. Like that's one huge way of looking at it. But in what you're saying, harmonically, like there's just a lot of dense harmony, just knowing how to work extensions, knowing how to work voicings, knowing how to resolve things, knowing, like, just thinking of all the different ways you can combine harmony, like changing keys, like analyzing Coltrane cycles. It just goes on and on.
Yeah, it's really a lifetime of studying music.
Yeah, I'm getting overwhelmed thinking about it.
Yeah, I know. I know for me, like along those lines, something that when I do play, I do primarily just play jazz music. Yeah. But when I am playing other styles of music, it helps me, again, like we were saying, that I just know what I'm playing. Like, I know what I'm doing. I understand harmonically what's going on and all these things. But on a totally different level, it really has helped me form this, I guess, work ethic. Jazz kind of, if I'm trying to work on some other styles of music, I've really learned how to study it. Yeah. Because jazz has kind of forced me to... Because it's not easy.
It's active listening.
So it kind of taught me how to listen better, lots of ear training, how to practice. I mean, jazz kind of taught me all those things. It really taught me to, before I used to dabble a lot with music, and I used to practice a lot, but jazz kind of like pointed me in a direction and gave me like some structure. Yeah. I don't know what you think about that. For me, that's something that it's benefited me so much. Any style of music I play.
Yeah. I mean, the patience it takes to sit down and transcribe a solo, like just knowing how to do that is invaluable. I mean, I've probably I probably transcribed a bunch of solos, but I'm saying learned a bunch of solos. I've learned a bunch, but like sitting down and transcribing a solo, I mean, the patience for me, at least, to do that is that's like a lot of hard work. But I'm glad I know how to do that because it makes everything 10 times easier. Kind of piggybacking off the thought that you just went off, the thought that you just added. Like like I told you, I've been working a lot in the church music, the church scene recently. Yeah. And there's something like
gospel music.
Gospel music, gospel music is a totally different monster. I love it. But like, there's a lot of overlap. But there's something like in churches that they do called a praise break or a shout. Yeah. So like the pastor's getting really revved up and like there's a lot of energy in the room. And then the organ player plays this lick and then you're like, oh, it's about to go down. Like it's about to happen. And then out of nowhere, like the drummer's just going at like 150 BPM and the organ player's going and the bass player has a very specific role. And like, I mean, you could Google praise breaks online. And I remember the first time I played it, I knew what to do because I knew the notes to play. So I was like playing, I was like, but like I just was so stiff and like I was thinking, and the organ player turned to me and goes, "Just don't think, just play." I was like, "Okay, that's good advice." But I remember like I realized I had to get to that point where I wasn't thinking. I had to get to that point where I was just playing, and like that's why like learning jazz is beautiful because like that's what it is. It's like eventually you're not thinking about the notes you're playing. So what I did is I went home. I just asked the organ player at the church to just send me as many like shout, praise breaks, whatever you want to call them, like songs he could find. And he sent me about 4 or 5, and I literally transcribed the lines of the bass player. And I just played them over and over again. Wow. And I literally sat there for probably 2 weeks, and I made my own loop on the computer, and I just had like a really simple track, and I just sat there like until I got to the point where I was like, I didn't need to think about it. And literally, as soon as I learned that, people started calling me for all these like different church gigs. Wow. Because it's just like it's a feel. Like you don't want to be thinking. It's like right now I'm thinking about what I'm saying, talking to you, but it's a conversation. It's colloquial. Like I feel like that's the whole point of like jazz. At least it's a conversation. It's a language.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the other analogy I was gonna make too. It's just like when you really understand one language. Like if you understand a romantic language like Spanish or one of the Latin-based languages, it's 10 times easier to learn Italian or French next because it's like there's so many things. It comes from the same place. So like knowing jazz, it's in like like you know how to play blues. I mean, it comes from the blues. So like you can like learn blues. It like a lot of the church stuff. Like a lot of that harmony comes from jazz.
Right. Like and the blues,
like all of them are so intertwined. So if you really understand jazz, you're gonna have a really easy time understanding other styles of music.
Well, it's so much popular music today. It all comes from the blues. I mean, a lot of it does. Yeah. I mean, we're excluding classical in those European those musics of old. Yeah.
Music's of old. Music's of old,
I don't know. Yeah. But but all this music, it comes from the blues and it comes from jazz. I think that's actually another great case for studying jazz
Yeah.
is a lot of this stuff comes right from there.
Yeah.
I mean, you just builds around, jazz, rock and roll,
Yeah.
and how rock has progressed, how pop has progressed,
Yeah.
all this stuff.
I mean, jazz is. I mean, its roots come from the blues. Excuse me. It's just it encompasses so much study. Like, so just by understanding jazz, you're at such a greater advantage than people who haven't studied it. And I just know I have a way of looking at music. It's quantifiable. Like, I just have this system of approaching music. So like when I hear something, like automatically I can like internalize it, digest it, and then regurgitate it. I know that sounds kind of gross, but it's like I hear something and it's like, oh well, that's 2-5-1. Oh, like I'm like I know a line and I hear a line. It's like, oh, I can play that back because I've learned like 500 other lines. Like,
yeah,
it's just like
your ear can catch on to anything.
Yeah, like that's probably true. Like studying jazz, you're really training your ear, because if you can hear the stuff that's going on in jazz, you can hear
a lot of other things.
I mean, and then you can make the same case, like if you study classical music and you understand the harmony that's going on in classical music, because I mean some of the harmony in classical, like I listen to Prokofiev and Brahms and all this stuff. I'm like, this is some of the most amazing harmony I've ever heard. And actually, that's something that I've been starting to do. Like, I've been listening to a lot of classical music in the past year, more than I ever have before. And even that opens yours. But I've never actually studied it, so now I'm thinking about it. It's like
I feel that way about classical music styles. I also like Afro-Cuban is a great example of, on a different sense, rhythmically.
Yeah.
Like, it's something where it's like, oh man, those guys fascinate me rhythmically, because it's not the culture I grew up in. I don't understand rhythm like that. Man, so like Afro-Cuban music for me is like, to really study that, it's like rhythmically, like, I mean, a lot of different styles of music around the world, but Afro-Cuban is the one that comes to my mind. Well, we're moving in this direction. So let me ask you this.
Go ahead.
It's basically the vice versa of the first question, which is how have other genres that you've played, and you've talked a little bit about that, but more specifically, how have other genres that you've played affected your jazz playing?
Yeah, I mean, I keep talking about church because that's just where I've been working a lot and learning most about recently. Like, there's something very, the word that popped in my mind is selfless about church music, because when you're there, you're playing for the congregation. You're playing like it's for God. It's like, it's this really religious, emotional experience, and like you're not really, like, you're just putting everything out on the line. You're completely raw, and it's like this really vulnerable but amazing experience. And I feel like jazz, the way it's been going recently, not recently, but like, because it's an academic thing, people are thinking about it more and more and more. And like, it's like, when you go to, like, I learned so much just playing in church, because I learned to stop thinking and just play. And like, because that's what you did when you were like 12, just playing in the garage with your friends. Like, you were just playing. Like, you weren't thinking about
like garage band style, man.
Like, you're just like, you're putting it on.
That was fun. That was fun times.
And like, that's the thing. I just realized how fun music is. Like, I was just having so much fun in church. Like, there are all these videos, like, you can find me playing this church stuff. I'm like jumping around like a clown, but it's just like, because it's fun music. So like, I guess like that's one way, like, the church stuff influenced. It just also, like, it's just very soulful, proud music. Like, I'm also, you were mentioning Afro-Cuban music, just the way, like, all these Afro-Cuban guys, like the salsa, Colombians, Cubans, like, all these guys lock in rhythmically. How they internalize it, just understanding the clave, understanding, like, just how to switch in between, like, really straight versions of the clave and then, like, the triplet version of the clave, just, like, knowing just how to phrase around that, rhythmically locking in, like, Afro-Cuban stuff. Just understanding clave is a huge study, and just how it's everywhere in music, everywhere. Like it comes from comes from Africa. What was the African percussion?
Oh yeah, we took this class called African Percussion Ensemble in college together.
What was his name?
Neil Clark.
Was it Neil Clark?
Neil Clark.
Oh god, I love that guy.
He's a phenomenal percussionist.
Yeah, but literally, it's just like he's right though. It's just like that stuff. Just you want to get to the point. Like I keep mentioning this, where you're not thinking about it, it's just embedded in you. Like. So like just having that clave, having
just feel it.
Yeah, like just having a really strong quarter note, just understanding like.
I remember he used to tell us like our homework was always like funny. It's like just while you're walking down the street, like feel the beat and realize that while your heart's beating, there's actually a pulse going on. It's like
okay,
all right. I mean, I guess you're right, man. I mean, like it's true. It's like and he was using like look at the person walking in front of you and like. Look at the what was the on and before? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm already forgetting.
On, off. Yeah,
I'm already forgetting some of the stuff in the class.
I love that class.
That was a cool class. I mean, yeah, you know, I was in Puerto Rico last year.
Yeah.
And I was listening to some salsa music out there.
Crazy.
And man, the groove, man. I was just like, whoa! Like I want to quit everything I'm doing. And play that music really well because those guys were so good at it.
The pocket and that stuff. I mean,
yeah.
So I've always been more of a rhythmic person.
Yeah.
Like
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've always played drums. Like because as an electric bass player, like you're responsible for like connecting like harmonic, like that low end, fundamental bass note with just the rhythmic, like locking in with the drums. So I play drums. I mean, you know, like
I know you play drums, man.
Like almost to a fault, but like I literally practice drums every day for like an hour or two, and it's not like my practice is. It's not like I'm sitting there learning solos. I'm literally just learning how to lock in, and like that's the other thing about like church music too. Like the way these drummers lock in, like just how aggressive and how natural. Like their feel is and clave is all over church music. Like just the 3-2, 2-3 stuff, you can hear it all over the place. So like personally, like I just locking in rhythmically has always been one of the things that I love. And I like truthfully when I'm thinking about soloing, like just like when I'm like taking a solo, like I'm thinking that my phrasing is heavily influenced by how I lock in. So like if I'm not locked in, like then all the stuff I'm playing is just nonsense. Like you really need to be like ingrained and locked in with like the beat. Like the rhythm needs to be internalized, or else like you're not really saying anything valuable.
Right.
Like
yeah.
it needs to groove. It needs to feel natural. Like I can't tell you how many times like I play with someone where their chop is like it's crazy. They can play for days, but like it just they weren't locked in.
Yeah.
And it was just like harmonically they knew every single extension they could play. Like they could make a cluster chord that would literally make your ears vomit because it was so beautiful. I have no idea what that means, but I said it. But it's just like, but they weren't locking in, and it's just like it just I don't know. Like when someone locks in, when they can groove, when what they're playing feels good, like that to me
it changes everything. And that's what I feel. Not that you can't learn that from you definitely learn that from jazz, but what I've really learned from other musics that are very groove based, like even like funk music, for example.
James Brown, man.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you listen to that music and it's like it's all about the groove.
Yeah,
it's not necessarily about the harmonic structure. It's not necessarily about. Yeah, but it grooves so hard that you could get up and dance for days.
Yo, put on a D'Angelo album and play along with that, and like if you can understand like how it feels, like if you can. Like it's to me it's like a reflection of how you're feeling. So like if you feel good when you're playing it, like you're really connected and you're dancing along, like you like in it, then that's what's gonna come across when you play.
Yeah.
And like just I keep saying the word connecting, but like you really want to get connected with that rhythm. So like, but yeah, man, just dude, I could play on one chord for 17 hours. I've done it.
Yeah. Well, you're the groove master.
But yeah, so. I'm just trying to think of what else, like just in terms of, I'm just trying to think of like all the other styles. Like I mean, like I said, I listen to a lot of rock music.
Yeah.
Do you listen to Tigran Hamasyan? Is that how you say his last name?
Tigran Hamasyan. That's how I always say it. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
He's a perfect example of just like how, like all these different, like how he's influenced by different styles of music. Like. Would you consider what he's playing jazz? Like, would you consider it jazz?
Okay, again, like, when we talk about the definition of jazz, it's always, especially these days, it gets a little elusive. I always like to just say it's jazz influenced.
Of course, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
It's jazz influenced, and he tends to hire mostly jazz musicians to play music with him.
But it's so funny because I consider what he's doing now rock and roll.
Yeah.
Like, not really like, yo, like rock and roll, smash guitar. No, it's like, it's just like the essence of it, just like the mentality to it. It's just like really, it's there's a simplicity to it, but it's still like complex. It's not the music. The music itself isn't simple. It's like, it's accessible. So like, have you listened to Mock Root? That's his most recent album.
No, I haven't.
I love it. It's like one of the most inspired. Well, actually, no. I don't know if it's his most recent, but it's one of his more recent albums. It's hugely influenced by like a lot of math metal. Have you checked out math metal?
Oh yeah.
So
I
like,
used to love that stuff.
Okay, so like Meshuggah.
I still like it. Yeah, Meshuggah. Yeah.
Oh god, I love Meshuggah. Dream Theater.
Dream Theater was one of my big influences.
Are they math metal? I don't know.
Well,
about Dream Theater.
they're not strictly math metal. They're really progressive rock,
progressive
and they
rock,
do a lot of time signature stuff.
Yeah. Okay, but the other band like Animals as Leaders, there's Opeth. Like there's certain bands where literally it's just like mathematic based music, and you could hear that influence in Tigran's music. And it's like that's some of the most inspired creative music I've heard in so long. I literally like was there were points where I was just like so touched by his album. Like the second song, I forget the name of it. There's a section. I mean, just okay, I'm going off on a tangent.
No.
It's just like because I'm just thinking of all the different things that just made that song amazing. I'm thinking specifically right now rhythmically, but like harmonically, just texturally, just where he's getting all of his different influences from. He created a sound that's just specific to him.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a tangent just because like. I mean, we're talking about how studying jazz can help you play other genres and vice versa, and essentially that's a lot of what jazz, like modern jazz, you could say is today. It's going in all these different directions, different styles of music. I mean, I think about Robert Glasper.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, that's like straight up R&B stuff, man. Like, I mean, so like, I mean, that's a lot of what jazz is today as well. It's just a combination of all these other styles and things going on.
Yeah, I mean. Did you listen to the Kendrick Lamar album, the one that came out last year?
I haven't heard that.
Oh God, it's so good. But literally, it's Robert Glasper is on half of it.
Yeah.
There's literally a track, like the second track in the album was just like them swinging to like a really hard blues, and then Kendrick Lamar's rapping over it.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like it's just like it. So I don't know. I'm a firm believer in crossover. I think just having.
Me too.
Yeah, because it's just like, but like I guess the reason I'm glad I studied jazz is because I created a context for music. I created a very strong context, and I knew that studying jazz would just really open me up to a lot of different styles, and I would have a much easier time learning different styles after that.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, if you understand jazz, you can play jazz, you can really understand all the different styles of music. There's like, there's just, like I keep saying, there's a systematic way I can approach music.
Yeah.
And it's just like if you're able to integrate other styles, then you start creating your own sound. Like that's what Tigran does. That's what all these different musicians are doing.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think the most important part is just trying to remain musical.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing. I just feel like the more you listen to, the more musical you can be, because you start to see where. You're gonna beat me up for this, but where like different styles fall short, like where jazz falls short, like how like certain ways like it doesn't connect to an audience. Then you can see how math metal falls short, because I mean, not everyone likes Meshuggah. I'll guarantee.
Yeah,
you that.
Absolutely. Yeah, right, exactly.
Like you could see how like church music falls short. Like you could see like music from all these different contexts now, because you have so much more range, and it's just. Like you can just pick and choose like the stuff that really connects to you, and it's just like the more you have, the better off you are. That's just the way I see it. And it's just like I love listening to all these different styles of music. Like I hear something new, I have my phone out, I'm Shazamming stuff. Like I Shazam like 7 different songs a day. Like I'll listen to a trap beat, I'm like, that's the craziest trap beat I ever heard. I have my phone out like listening to it, I'm like, this is amazing. Like so but yeah, I just kind of tried to sum everything up right there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I think you said everything really well. Well, Nathaniel, thanks for being on the show today. Yeah. Your feedback was super valuable. So thanks for being on. Thanks for taking the time.
Man.
And man, I hope we have you back on the show soon.
I would love. I mean, dude, it's really cool being here.
All right, that's all for our show today. Want to thank you for joining us today, and thank you for listening. And if you have anything else to add to today's show and you're on the website right now, go ahead and leave us a comment in the comment section below. We're a community, and we love to hear from you. And remember that all the music on today's show was by our guest, Nathaniel Schroeder. You can check out his music that he does for the YouTube's channel Minute Earth and Minute Physics on his SoundCloud page. So soundcloud.com/Dr. Schroeder. And remember, if you got any value out of today's show, consider adding value back. You can go to the support button if you're on the website, leave us a one-time, monthly, or annual donation, or you can go to learnjazzstandards.com/support. And we're going to be coming out with episode number 21 of the LJS podcast next week. We're looking forward to seeing you then.